Australia's H5N1 moment, why bird flu has scientists paying attention. Australia has just crossed a threshold that many scientists, wildlife managers and biosecurity experts have been hoping to avoid for years. On the 20th of June 2026, authorities confirmed that a wild brown skua found near Esperance in Western Australia tested positive for highly pathogenic H5N1 bird flu. For the first time, this globally circulating strain has been detected on the Australian mainland. Now, before anyone panics, let's be clear, this is not the beginning of a human pandemic in Australia. The current risk to the public remains low, but it could be a significant moment for Australian wildlife. And it tells us something fascinating about how connected our world really is. So in this video, I want to explain what H5N1 actually is, why scientists are concerned, what it might mean for Australian wildlife, and what it teaches us about the relationship between the environment, wild animal health, and human health. Let's start with the basics. Authorities recently confirmed that a wild brown skua bird tested positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI H5N1. This particular lineage is known as clade 2.3.4.4b. Now that sounds like an incredibly complex name, but for scientists names matter because they tell us something about the biology of the virus and how it relates to outbreaks elsewhere in the world. A key point is that this isn't a completely new virus. It's the same broad lineage that has spread across Europe, North America, South America, Africa and Antarctica over the last few years. Australia was one of the last places where it had not yet been detected on the mainland. That has now changed. So what does H5N1 actually mean? Let's decode the name. So H5N1 refers to two proteins found on the surface of the virus. The H stands for hemagglutinin. Think of this as the virus's key. It helps the virus unlock and enter a host cell. The N stands for neuraminidase. Think of this as a pair of scissors or wire cutters. Once the virus has replicated inside a cell, neuraminidase helps newly formed virus particles break free and spread elsewhere. Scientists have identified many different versions of these proteins. That's why you hear the names like H5N1, H7N9 or H1N1. They're all influenza viruses, but with different combinations of keys and scissors. So what about HPAI versus LPAI? Another confusing piece of terminology is HPAI and LPAI. HPAI stands for highly pathogenic avian influenza. LPAI stands for low pathogenic avian influenza. Now a really important point here is that highly pathogenic does not mean highly dangerous to humans necessarily. It refers to what the virus does in birds. Now low pathogenic strains often cause mild disease and no obvious symptoms. Highly pathogenic strains can cause severe disease and high mortality. Now the H5N1 strain, now detected in Western Australia, belongs to this highly pathogenic category, unfortunately. So why are scientists concerned? Well, the answer is that this lineage has behaved differently from many previous bird flu outbreaks. Historically, avian influenza was often viewed primarily as an agricultural issue. A poultry farm becomes infected. Sadly, birds are then culled, biosecurity measures are introduced and the outbreak is typically contained. What's different about the H5N1 lineage is that it has become established in wild bird populations across much of the world. Wild birds don't stop at farm fences, they don't stop at international borders. Many migrate thousands of kilometers every year. That makes containment vastly more challenging. But there's another key reason why scientists are paying attention. This virus has infected an unusually broad range of mammal species, animals like seals and sea lions and foxes and mink and even dairy cattle and many others. And that doesn't mean it's becoming a human pandemic, but it does mean that scientists are watching very closely. So what does this mean for Australian wildlife? Well, for me this is perhaps the most important part of the story. Much of the media attention focuses on poultry and agriculture, and of course those are important issues, but Australia is also home to unique wildlife found nowhere else on Earth. Many of our seabirds and shorebirds and raptors and marine mammals have had little or no previous exposure to this lineage of viruses, and that's where uncertainty comes in. We simply don't yet know which species will be most vulnerable. Experiences overseas have ranged from limited impacts in some species to severe mortality events in others. The coming months and years will help determine how Australian ecosystems respond, and that's why wildlife surveillance is now so important. The bigger ecological story. So bird flu is not a new disease. Influenza viruses have lived alongside wild birds for millennia, but many researchers believe that the highly pathogenic H5N1 strain emerged when these viruses entered dense poultry populations, where they had new opportunities to evolve into a far more damaging form. But the ecological context in which diseases emerge and spread is changing. Around the world, we are transforming landscapes and clearing habitats, fragmenting ecosystems, and we're moving species around the globe. We're intensifying agriculture and altering the climate, and these changes changes can place additional stress on wildlife populations and influence how hosts, pathogens, and environments interact. Think about it this way: a healthy ecosystem is a bit like a healthy body. I often talk about the body being a walking ecosystem, see my other videos. Diversity often creates resilience, and in a healthy forest or a wetland or a coastal ecosystem, there are countless interactions between species that help maintain stability, dynamic stability. When ecosystems become degraded or fragmented, some of that resilience can be lost. Animals may experience nutritional stress, and migration patterns may change, and breeding colonies can become more vulnerable, and populations may become less able to cope with additional pressures such as diseases. So H5N1 is an ecological story. One of the central ideas in One Health is that the health of people, non-human animals, and ecosystems are deeply interconnected. We cannot fully separate one from the others. When wildlife populations decline, ecosystems change, and when ecosystems change, disease dynamics can change, and ultimately those changes can affect people too. That's why many scientists increasingly see biodiversity conservation and ecosystem restoration, see my Restoration Bites videos, as investments in long-term resilience and health, both the health of ecosystems and human societies. So what about human health? So what is the risk to people? Right now, Australian health authorities consider the risk to the general public to be low. There is currently no evidence of sustained human-to-human transmission, and there is no evidence that the virus has entered Australia's commercial poultry industry yet. However, influenza viruses evolve rapidly. That's simply what they do. Every replication cycle creates opportunities for genetic change, and scientists are monitoring H5N1 closely because it has infected a wider range of mammal species than many previous avian influenza viruses. Each spillover into a new host provides another opportunity for the virus to adapt. To be clear, there is currently no evidence that H5N1 spreads efficiently between people, as I mentioned, but public health agencies around the world continue to monitor the virus closely for any changes in its behaviour, and that's precisely why surveillance matters. So what can you do? If you encounter a sick or dead bird or mammal, don't touch them. Report them to the relevant authorities, or call, if you're in Australia, the Emergency Animal Disease Hotline on 1800 675 888. And if you're a birder or wildlife enthusiast or naturalist, or simply someone who spends time outdoors, keep paying attention. Observation is one of the most powerful tools we have. So citizen scientists, bird watchers, wildlife carers, and local communities often provide the first clues that something unusual is happening. The bigger lesson. So for me, one of the most interesting parts is what it reveals about interconnectedness. A virus circulating among wild birds on one side of the planet can eventually reach another continent. Our lifestyles and activities can change the behaviour and create new opportunities for pathogens to evolve into far more damaging forms. Wildlife health influences agricultural health influences human health, and human activities influence wildlife health. Everything is connected. And H5N1 is perhaps one of the clearest examples of that principle in action. The arrival of H5N1 on the Australian mainland is a reason for vigilance. It marks the beginning of potentially a new chapter in Australia's biosecurity story. The coming months will tell us a lot more about how this virus behaves in our unique ecosystems and what impacts it may have on wildlife populations, if indeed it does spread beyond the initial bird victim. If you'd like to explore these ideas in more depth, I've written extensively about them in my book, The Nature of Pandemics, which explores how ecological change and biodiversity loss and human health are deeply connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful or interesting, please do me a huge favour and click like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help the channel grow and allows me to keep making these educational videos. And remember, stay wild, inside and out.